Hello. It's working. Hey, it's good to see you here. It's always good to see you. Let's stand and sing a grand old hymn. I love to tell the story of unseen things above, of Jesus and His glory, of Jesus and His love. I love to tell the story because I know 'tis true. It satisfies my longing as nothing else can do. I love to tell the story. 'Twill be my theme and glory to tell the old story of Jesus and His love. I love to tell the story. 'Tis pleasant to repeat what seems each time I tell it more wonderfully sweet. I love to tell the story, for some have never heard the message of salvation from God's own holy word. I love to tell the story. 'Twill be my theme in glory to tell the old story of Jesus and His love. I love to tell the story for those who know it best, seem hungering and thirsting to hear it like the rest. And when in scenes of glory I sing the new song, will be the old story that I have loved so long. I love to tell the story. Will be my theme in glory to tell the old story of Jesus and His love. Amen. You may be seated. You or him? Him all the way. Where you go? There you are.
Well, good evening. That was quite a beginning. Thank you for being present tonight in the rain. We are here tonight to kind of go over and talk about a little bit of what we experienced, the 11 of us, on our brave adventure to the Great White North, and to particularly Alaska, and to specifically Seldovia, Alaska. And how we're going to kind of process our way through this evening, if it's okay, is I'm going to begin just with some history stuff, kind of let you know about the place and about how we're connected to it and how we got there and that kind of thing. And then different folks from our mission team will come up and share different aspects of the trip and kind of what went on, some of the things that stuck out to them. And then I'll come back up and close it. We're going old school tonight. I like this. So we've got that. That's good. So, why Alaska? Okay. Well, about 2009, I went up to Alaska with a group of people from Bogalusa, Louisiana. And the purpose of that was to try to establish some type of ministry there or partnership there that we could kind of connect with. And so the short story of that is that we connected with a guy named Alfred Keonce and his wife Helen, who lived in the town of Seldovia. And so we began then a partnership where we could go up there and we could do some ministry to the church, with Alfred and Helen, who were members of the church there, and also to help them do vacation Bible school. So before we get too much further, let me show you where Seldovia is. You've heard me before probably, that you can't get there from here. You have to go through and this is, I'm no artist. This is Alaska here. So, wow. So here's Alaska, drawn to scale, of course. I got to look here, and then here, and then it kind of breaks over here, and it goes down over here. And this is Canada. So there you go. Can you see that at all? No? Did you say no? You got to take my word for it, I guess. So this area here is Alaska. This is the archipelago. Everybody say archipelago. Archipelago that comes out. That's that series of islands, right? That comes out. So Russia's over here, and Canada's over here. So Anchorage is like right here. Well, it goes in like that. So there's Anchorage. Different color? Well, we don't want to spend too much time, I think, on this. I'll try a different color. How about green? The green doesn't work at all. How about red? Does that help at all? No. I heard somebody say no. All right. There. Let's just kind of pretend. Oh, we got one here. All right, that's going to have to do. Okay? Thank you, Pastor. So here's the bulk of Alaska, larger than Texas. I apologize for that, Pastor, but it is. It kind of cuts down here. This is Canada. This is the Bering Strait. It's where they fish for crab. Russia's over here. Here's the archipelago. Right here in the middle is Anchorage, okay? So to get to Seldovia, you got to get on a plane. Ours left out of Memphis. And we flew from Memphis to Chicago, and then Chicago to Anchorage. We stayed the night here in Anchorage. Then we have to get on a car, a van, and make our way along here. And there's no straight shots, obviously. Make our way along here, all the way down to this place here. Here, that's called Homer, Alaska. At Homer, Alaska, we have to get on a boat and go into, before you get to the archipelago, about a 45-minute boat ride to Seldovia, which is right here. So it's at the very bottom of Alaska, kind of southwest-ish, but not south-central, more than southwest-ish. You have to go by plane, by car, and by boat to get there. It's completely isolated insofar as there's no road to get there. You have to come in on boat. And then to leave, of course, you have to kind of unwind that and go all the way back. Now, Seldovia used to be a pretty happening place back in the early part of the century, because one of the things about Seldovia was this bay here, the Kachemak Bay, never freezes. And so before 1964, Seldovia was a capital in Alaska for canneries and fisheries. So they would bring their fish into Seldovia, and there was a great industry there that kind of was really emerging, and it was a pretty happening place. And then in 1964, there was what they call the Good Friday earthquake. And the Good Friday earthquake devastated Seldovia. They had a lot of boardwalks out in the water, and the whole ground dropped like 10 feet, and the boardwalk fell into the ocean, and just devastated the place. Well, a lot of these canneries and fisheries, and we know that kind of thing, had happened all over America in different small towns. The canneries and the fisheries decided they could do it cheaper if they didn't have to float over to Seldovia, and they just went to Homer. And Homer became kind of the jumping off place, the place where everything is. They've got the McDonald's and the gas stations and things like that. And so Homer became what Seldovia kind of was supposed to. And so after that, there's some urban renewal that comes along, but Seldovia just kind of fades from prominence in that area. Excuse me. And over the years, people kind of leave. There's no industry holding it back until you get to today, where Seldovia probably has about 300 residents in it full time. Of that 300 people, it's mostly it's a day trip for people to go someplace. And so you go to Seldovia, and they've got little bric-a-brac shops, and they've got little restaurants, like 2 restaurants, ice cream shops, for people to go for the day and to turn around and go back. Once the winter comes in Seldovia, it's very hard to move around. There's no traffic. The ferry stops, and so they just kind of hunker down for the winter. More specifically, in Seldovia, there is no evangelical presence. Well, there's one church. Seldovia was kind of founded by Russians. The Russians founded a lot of this stuff over here. The only church that's still standing is a Russian Orthodox church that exists, but they only use it for feast days and weddings and funerals, and there is not even a priest. There's only one church, and that church is the Seldovia Bible Chapel. The pastor is Jonathan Horde and his wife, Melanie, and they've been there probably 20 years or so. So when you go to Seldovia, you're really going to a place where there's just not a lot of infrastructure. There's not a lot of things happening. There's not a lot of people coming. There's not a bunch of money. Many of the people that live there are subsistence fishermen, fisherwomen, and they just kind of make their way. And so in 2009, when we found this place, or this place found us, I really kind of fell in love with it and fell in love with the people. We began a ministry from Bogalusa to go up there and do ministry with them, partner with them every year, and have been doing it for a while. COVID happened, it shut us down for a couple of years. I moved to Benton, and there was folks who wanted to go to Seldovia, and they still wanted people to come. And so this is our second trip up there from Benton, and it's really good ministry. It's not flashy ministry. What do I mean by flashy ministry? There's not a lot of news reports about working in Seldovia. There's not a lot of there's just a lot of just trust up there between the natives, the Inuits and the Eskimo and the Aleuts, and the white people, still to this day. We've built a relationship over the years where we're kind of grandfathered in to the culture, but when we first started going, there was real resistance to us being present because they didn't want anything from the white man. They wanted just to kind of do their own thing because there's real big distrust. A lot of the reason because the Russians, when they came in, they really kind of devastated the place and treated people bad, and that lingers. So when we go there with the mission to just partner with the church. The pastor Pastor and his family live in a little parsonage that's built onto the church. So imagine if our church was in Seldovia, we would come out of here, we would go into the foyer, and then in Eddie Paul's Sunday school classroom, that would be the parsonage. Can you imagine? Pastor says absolutely not. Yeah, it would be tough, right? So, if you had to, get a call or something, you come out in your pajamas and there's people in the foyer. I mean, it's a kind of a tough scene, but they've been handling it. They've been doing it, like I said, for 20 years. They've raised their 3 kids there in Seldovia, and they've been really great. Pastor Jonathan was telling me about the church. On any given Sunday in the summer, they could have 10 regular members. They would have maybe 15 attenders who aren't members. And then they might have 30 to 35 visitors on any given Sunday in the summer. In the winter, they might have 5 regular members. They might have another 5 to 8 attenders, and that's it. Because a lot of people leave for the winter and get out of there because it snows pretty bad up there. So it's not a ministry like we've got here in the States, and especially as we have here in Benton at Emmanuel. It's a real subsistence ministry where the people just get together and live and have community. And there's trials that go with that. And so anyway, we'll spend a whole lot of time on that. When we come in, we're able to do several things. Number one, we're able to help the church in any projects they might have. Because of Seldovia's remoteness, you can't just go down to Home Depot and pick up some lumber and some nails and come in there and try to fix something. You have to have it shipped in, which is a big problem. And so they reuse a lot of stuff. They cut their own trees down. Last year, we tried to put some trees that they had cut for some baseboard around the church, and the trees were too wet. We couldn't smooth them out. And so we waited to this year to try again, and they were still wet. They don't have any kilns up there, right? So when a group of us come in, we're able to do things. We rewired some lights for them, that they needed done. We repaired the trash cans that were, and you say, well, that's no big deal. Well, it is if you got bears, because the bears come and open the trash cans and eat. I'm sure someone will talk about bears later on. But so it's a big deal for them as well. Little things that we can do around the church because we've got bodies and they don't have bodies. And so that's a part of what we do. The big part of what we do is Vacation Bible School. And so Vacation Bible School comes, and at Emmanuel, we do Vacation Bible School really, really well. Isn't that great? So Seldovia gets from us a turnkey Bible school operation. And so this year in Bible school, we probably had 26, 27 kids. Well, again, that may be every kid that's in Seldovia. That may be 100% attendance. Imagine if we had 100% attendance of Bible school in Benton. We probably wouldn't be able to house them all, and we certainly wouldn't be able to control them all. It's true. And Seldovia, there may be, that may be all the kids in Seldovia on a given day. And they're all coming to Bible school, and they're all getting to hear about the life-changing message of Jesus Christ, and they're getting loved on. Seldovia suffers from a great deal of depression, a great deal of alcoholism, because, again, the Arctic circles are like right here. So Seldovia is down here. That means that in the summer, the sun is out for about 18 hours. Is that right? I know that I went to sleep or tried to go to sleep around 10 o'clock, and the sun was up. And I woke up again between 5 and 7, depending on how tired I was. And the sun was still up. It never got dark. And even when it does get dark, it doesn't get completely dark. Well, part of what happens, that's the summer. In the winter, it's reversed. And so it's mostly dark. Well, what do you do in the dark? You stay at home. You can't get out. You can't work like we might think about work. And so there's a lot of drinking that goes on to try and deal with that. And so there's a lot of family, dynamics that are difficult. And those kids are the kids that we got to see in Vacation Bible School. And those kids who, and in fact, one of the kids that we were talking to and was there at Vacation Bible School, never been to church before. Never been to church. And his family had never come to church. And so they got a whole week of just hearing about how much Jesus loves them. And that's juxtaposed against a life that might reveal that not a whole lot of people love them, not even their family. That's the kind of ministry it is. It's a get dirty kind of ministry. It's a get on your knees and get eye to eye with kids. And it's real, you know. And that's one of the reasons that I still go. If we have invitation and if we have, and it's okay with the church and we have people that want to go, I still make that journey even after all these years. I think it's my 12th time to go up there because it's just real ministry. It's the least of these. It's people who don't have a whole lot of the blessings that we have here, and I find a great strength in bringing the light of Jesus there. So, like I said, it's not showy, not flashy, but it's something that really impacts me in my heart. So I'm really grateful for the 11 brave souls who are seated down here to decided to come and go with me. I'm going to turn it over to them now. I know you've heard me talk enough, but I just want to note the shirts that we have. If you look on the back, it says Misfits. And Pastor, that's a reference to, I don't know if you even know this, but that's a reference to a couple of Sundays before. The pastor was talking about the Alaska trip, and he looked over at me and he said, Greg Whaley and his band of misfits. Just as a joke. Just as a joke. Well, don't joke with Kelly Robertson. Because immediately after that, Kelly Robertson texted me like, hey, I'm getting shirts that say misfit. What size you wear? So that's what that is. That's why you had one on your, he and I haven't had time to kind of talk about that. That's why you have one on your desk there. That's where the misfits come from. And I think it's apt, yeah? It was an apt discussion. So what we're going to do now, thanks for letting me kind of drone on here. We're going to turn it over to some folks to tell you about some of the things that we did and how we did them. And I'm going to let them talk. And so, Dawn, you're first.
I promise I won't take as much time as I did last year. I promise. But you know what? This year's trip was equally as fantastic as last year's. Actually, I feel more blessed this year than I did last year because, you know more people there, and they just welcome you in like they would welcome you into their home and allow you to stay with them. But I wasn't going to go this year because my husband and I are celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary this year. And we had planned to take an Alaskan cruise. And we did take that Alaskan cruise. And I said, I can't go to Alaska twice in one summer. That's crazy. And then both of my girls decided they were going to go on the Alaska trip. And my husband just looked at me and said, you can't stay home. And I couldn't. So I went. A month after we got home from our cruise, I went again. And it was awesome. Just amazing. The people in Seldovia are wonderful. They welcome you into the community. And, Greg, when he said it was rough the first few years, he definitely has paved a way for us because they have community fish fries for us. And the first night that we were there, we were all tired from traveling, and Mrs. Horde, she fixed us this gigantic meal, and, it was great. I'd like to thank everybody in the church for supporting this trip. In any small or huge way, thank you so much. And they have entrusted me to coordinate the Bible school, and I appreciate that confidence in me to do that. But I wasn't the only one that did Bible school. We had Amy and Emily. You want to stand up? My girls. They were the ones that kept the kids excited. When they would come into the sanctuary, Greg would have the music. I won't make you stand up, Greg. Greg would have the music cranking, and the girls had a dance routine for them to do just to get them moving and get them excited. And those kids were excited. Then, after the music was over, I said a few words welcoming them. Then Morgan and Lori would do the Bible story. And they have missed their calling because they do a fantastic job telling the stories, the daily Bible stories. Then we would go downstairs to the basement and do some crafts. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid and I went to Bible school, crafts was my favorite part of the Bible school. Yeah, I liked the singing and I liked the Bible study, and it was okay. But crafts, that's where it was at. So, Dash and Peggy and Natalie were my craft crew, and they did a great job. Now, I want to share a little bit of one of the crafts. Well, I'm going to share the whole thing with you. When I was planning the craft, what crafts we were going to do, I knew that we were going to take the crafts that we had done here at Emmanuel and take them and do them. But I wanted something that would be special to them, that they could take home, that they could tell their family about what they learned at Bible school, and that they could keep in their room or keep in the living room or keep somewhere that they could look at that would remind them. And if somebody asked them, what was that, they could tell them. So I introduced them to a strange word, and they all laughed at me whenever I said, okay, kids, today we're going to do decoupage. And the team was like, what? But we did decoupage. We did a key fob, a key ring holder, and each day we put a different key ring on it. And the kids did not know what the key ring of the day was going to look like. The first day, the key ring was a fish. That's because the message for the day was Jesus told Peter he wanted him to make fishers of men. So, for the kids to remember that they were going to be fishers of men, we gave them a fish. The second day was Jesus walked on water. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Jesus walked on water. And as Peter came toward him and he looked away, Peter started to sink. Then he looked at Jesus again, and up he came. Jesus was his lifesaver, as well as he can be our lifesaver. So they got a little lifesaver ring. The third day, what? Oh, well, the backside was my first try. It was not decoupage. It was painting, and I thought decoupage would be a lot cleaner than. So anyway, the third day, we have a rooster, and everybody was like, what, a chicken? What are we doing with a chicken? Does anybody want to take a guess what the chicken is? Yes. What's the chicken mean? You're right. Jesus told Peter that he would deny him 3 times before the cock crowed. And yes, thus the chicken. They love the chicken. Okay. So the next day, was the lesson about the lame man at the gate, and Jesus healed him, told him to pick up his pallet and go. So, do you know Jesus? Was the next one. And then Pastor Greg gave us the last message of the week. And that was, it was a great message for the kids. And he brought it down to their level. But it was, who's in control of your life? So they get a Game Boy controller. Who's in control of your life? And we kept it at the church all week. Each day they would add another key ring to the message board. And at the last day, they got to take it home with them. So they were all excited about what's the key ring of the day. So that was our big craft that started the first day and went through the end. Thanks, Sam. You can take that back with you if you want. Thank you. Another thing we did on the first day was, Don Mastery, thank you very much, and the Gideons for the small Bibles. We appreciate that immensely. We gave each one of the children a Bible. They had cool little covers to them. The theme for the Bible school was twists and turns. It was all about games and board games and just games. So they had cool little covers for their Bibles, and each one had a Bible. And we told them, you get an extra point. We gave them points for being there, for bringing their Bible, if they brought a friend, if they knew the memory verse, and I guess that was it. Each day that they got points. And at the end of the week, whoever had the most points got to pick a prize out of the things that we took as our prize thing. They got to be the first one to pick a prize. So, at the end of the week, on Thursday afternoon, when you think probably by that time the Bibles have gone underneath the seat of the car or out the window or the dogs chewed them up, out of 23 kids that we had attend on Thursday, we had 20 Bibles. How impressive is that? These kids couldn't find their shoes most of the time. But they had their Bible, and they brought their Bible to church. And, a lot of us adults can take a lesson from that. So, Bibles. They all have a Bible now. There are some things that, let me see, what else did I want to say? I said, thank you. All right. This is an awesome trip. And if you ever get a chance to go to Seldovia and teach Bible school or work in to get moss off a roof or anything, I would highly recommend it. It's a great trip, and it does touch your heart. So thank you for everything that you guys have done for us.
Well, I just want to thank God for the opportunity to go on the trip, and I want to thank all of you that prayed for us. Everything went okay. It was a great trip. Travel's tough, but it's really a great trip. I don't know if you know it, but Alaska is an acronym for God's creation and the splendor of it. It's just incredible there. But the one I think I want to talk about is Jonathan and Melody. And we showed up the first night, and he's got a bear that he shot, skinned out, in his garage. And this is how busy he is. Somebody calls, there's a bear getting in the chickens. He's the one that's got to take care of it. One day, Dash and I were, in the evening, we went fishing, and there's a boat upside down. And, you know, these aren't John boats like around here. And the next morning, we're talking to him, and he said, yeah, he said, I was up all night helping them get this boat out of the water and upright. This guy has no time for anything. We would help him do chores, and while you're standing there talking to him, how many times did his phone ring? You know, it's just nonstop. He's got an old Tahoe, and I borrowed it a couple times, drove around town, and everybody I saw waved. He's 6'5", he's bald, he's got a gray beard. They loved me. I was a hit, you know. But it was really nice to get there and help him do a few things. We didn't get a lot done. They just run out of materials. We're looking for boards, we're looking for a piece of metal, it's just hard to come up with materials there. The people, it's like, I felt like I was in my childhood. The kids are running. You said something about couldn't find their shoes. They don't wear shoes. They come in dirty. At first that bothered me, but then I realized they're out having fun. They're like we used to be in our youth. And I want to also mention the Hand family. That's a very prominent family, and they do a lot for the church. They entertained us a lot. They took care of the young kids, not young adults, but the young adults were great. They kept us moving. And if you've never seen Lori and Morgan do a Bible study with kids, put it on your bucket list. It's precious. That's all I've got.
I want to warn everybody that I'm heavily medicated tonight. And at this point, Pastor Greg is sweating. What's that? Yeah. So Greg gave me a specific list of things I could and couldn't talk about this year. So I wrote I actually have this right here that's got the list of things I can talk about. So, see, bread, butter, pancake mix. Oh, wait, that's his grocery list. Never mind. Couple of things. Number one, Jonathan, Thursday afternoon, I'm going to get to the main part of it here, but Thursday afternoon, Jonathan grabbed me and he said, hey, we got a lady, we need her deck pressure washed, and it'll only take 20 minutes. Okay, for those of you that have been there, you understand that, in Alaska, 20 minutes is not 20 minutes. So I think like after an hour, Greg came to find me. But this lady and her husband have lived in Seldovia 50 years, 60 years. They actually came there as teachers. He was a school teacher and came there. And she told me about how that when they first came there, they lived in a step van. And then finally got to where they could afford to build a 20-foot by 20-foot cabin. And her husband and the 7 kids lived in it, I think. And she kept talking about her blessings, and she hugged on me and thanked me for pressure washing the deck. She had actually came out. The pollen was so thick that between the rain that they get, and it's not really rain, it's a mist all the time, but the rain that they got and then the pollen shed was so bad, and then the moss and stuff that was growing on it. She came out. She's 80 years old, I think, something like that. Came out. She face planted, so she had really hurt herself in a bad way. And she made the comment, she said, this was a blessing that I wasn't expecting. And Jonathan said, well, you know, the best blessings are the ones you don't expect, right? So it was a blessing. I expected to be blessed going to Alaska, and I expected to enjoy the blessings of being with other believers, of sharing the gospel, of working in the community and whatnot. So meeting them and hearing her story, she was talking about how she was going to be a great-grandmother, and that one of her kids was a missionary in Ethiopia, and they had just adopted an Ethiopian young woman who at the time is pregnant. So that, you know, and that's her great-grandchild, and her love for the Lord. So they really blessed me the last 2 days we were there and talking with them and getting to share with them. But one of the things that I got to do was lead a devotional. I forget what night it was, Thursday night, Wednesday night. I guess it was Wednesday night. I don't remember. That's 2 weeks ago. And I'm medicated. But the team wanted me to kind of share kind of what I talked about there. So I'm going to try to do an abbreviated version so that we're not here for 2 hours. And one of the things, Greg, Blackman, okay. I'm a farmer, have been a farmer. I'm an agronomist. So what that means is I can operate very expensive, heavy equipment that has a rabbit and a turtle for slow and fast, okay? So I try to explain things in ways I understand. One of the things I really like are the parables because they're mostly agricultural in nature, okay? I can understand them, all right? But even I miss some things. So last year I talked about the fact that, you know, I came home and I was disappointed because I really didn't think we did anything. And then as I've looked forward to this year, I've come to realize after reading one of the parables of Jesus, Matthew 13, that, you know what, I'm looking at this all the wrong way. And so I want to talk about the difference between planting and sowing, okay? So we're going to talk about corn because, I don't know, I like corn. If you follow me on Facebook, you understand that. And I'm a terrible artist. So this is a corn seed. We plant corn. And there's a reason we plant corn, okay? So we plant a corn seed, and we want to plant it at least 1.5 inches, 2 inches deep. Because there's certain things that have to happen in order for that to make a yield, in order for it to get a response, okay? And so the first thing, when we plant that seed, it has to imbibe water. It has to take in water. It takes up to 50% of its weight in water. And that water has to be warmer than 50 degrees or it could kill it, the seed. And one of the first things that happens when it imbibes water is it begins to send out 2 things. The first root here is called the radicle. And all that root's job is to hold that seed in place while the mesocotyl comes out of the seed. The mesocotyl, and now how anybody can look at any of this and not believe in the design of God is beyond me. It's always 3/4 of an inch long. Always. Okay? At the top of the mesocotyl, there will be just a little knot here, and above that will be what's called the coleoptile sheath. The coleoptile sheath contains all the leaves for that corn plant. Okay? It also contains the growing point. And so, to exaggerate this a little bit, you get this area down here where, oh, I missed something here. So, from the mesocotyl, once the mesocotyl gets up and initiates the coleoptile sheath, you get the first seminodal root. And its whole job is to support the coleoptile as it comes through the ground. Inside, or at the bottom of the coleoptile, is the first 4 roots or major roots of the plant. Those are the nodal roots. Those are what does all the work in the plant. Take up all the nutrients, take up all the water, do everything. It's also where the growing point stays below the ground until the plant reaches its 5th leaf stage. At the 5th leaf stage, that growing point finally moves above the soil surface. You can take a plant that's less than 5 leaves, cut it off at the ground, and it'll grow right back. If you got a plant that's 5 leaves, you cut it off the ground, it dies. When we plant corn, we need this plant because of this 3/4, and then this is also about 1 inch where this takes place for the nodal roots and the growing point. So we need to be planting 1 3/4 inches or 2 inches deep to ensure that our roots are set below the surface of the soil and do all the work. Now let's contrast that with sowing. And I'm probably the last generation of farmers that understands sowing. My son would not understand it. Probably a lot of other younger farmers and whatnot that have come on the last few generations would never understand sowing. What is sowing? Sowing means you just throw them out there, right? Okay? So let's look at a soybean for a second, because we used to sow beans. So soybeans basically has 3 parts to it. It's got the cotyledons, or if you look at a bean, any bean has basically got 2 parts. You can split a bean in half, right? So it's got 2 parts. So it's got the cotyledons. It's got this, usually got a dot there, where it's called the hilum. That's where this is actually attached inside the pod. So that's like where the umbilical cord, for lack of a better way to say it, attaches to the pod. And then you'll have the radicle that's laying right in here. So a soybean goes through the same process. We throw it out on the ground. Soybeans, wheat, alfalfa, you name it, okay? A lot of those plants we throw out on the ground. And they have to imbibe water. They have to take up water. And they have to keep taking up water. Because as this bean swells, it'll initiate the radicle. The radicle will come out. Need to draw it this way. And begin to try to penetrate with its taproot the soil and grow in the soil. And this soybean now will be in the crook, what we call the crook. And this is when it's at its most vulnerable, right here. Because it's trying to make sure that it's got enough moisture and it's got soil in which it can grab nutrients and water and then be able to pull this upright. And once it pulls the soybean seed upright, you'll get the cotyledons will open up. And then up from that comes the first set of what we call trifoliate leaves. And the growing point is always where that set of trifoliate leaves are at. I really wish we could plant the gospel in people's hearts. Planting implies precision. There's a whole industry in agriculture built on making sure that we can precisely place seeds. I cannot, and I use this example, I cannot open up Greg's heart and take one of those Gideon Bibles from Don and put it 1.5 inches into his chest and watch the Word of God grow. Can't do it. And so when I heard stories of Uganda and these other places where, you know, you walk down the road and you share the gospel and flocks of people come, it kind of confused me. We are sowing seeds. And so if we go to Matthew 13, Jesus said to them these things. Consider the sower who went out to sow, and as he was sowing, some seeds fell along the path, and the birds came along and ate them. That seed never got a chance to swell. It never got a chance to germinate. It never got a chance to try to root itself and pull itself upright. Others fell on rocky ground where there wasn't much soil, and they sprang up quickly since the soil wasn't deep. But when the sun came out, they were scorched and withered. So they were able to have water. They got the word. They germinated. But they didn't have any root system to continue. They weren't rooted where they needed to be. Others fell among the thorns, and the thorns came up and choked them. And that's pretty self-explanatory. The cares of life, other things distracted them and took them away. Still others fell on good ground and produced a crop, some 100, some 60, some 30 times what was sown. Anyone who has ears should listen. This is a sowing ministry in Alaska. We're going to throw seeds out, and it's what Lori was worried, and a couple other people worried. Well, we're not doing a good job. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. It's not our job. Our job is to throw the seeds. Wherever they land is where they land. And we get up the next morning, and we throw more seeds. And so understanding the concept or the principle of what we're sowing, we've sowed seeds now. Greg has sowed seed there for 12 years. We're seeing fruit of that. I mean, where else in the world can you go and get every kid in the village to show up for Bible school? you know. No, we may not have saw anybody walking aisles per se, but we've done what God has asked us to do. We've thrown the seeds out there, and then he's the one who will bring the harvest. So that's my word for tonight. I do have some stories about the Seldovia track team if anybody'd like to know how they did in qualifying. See me after the service. But thank you. No whales. No.
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, absolutely. You can take this home, right? I mean, this preaches. I told Kelly this is one of the best devotions in Alaska. I've seen many of them. This is one of the best ones, and it wasn't the only one. Emily gave a great devotion about what comes in and what goes out in our lives, and probably, of course, our pastor, when I got back from Seldovia, asked as he wants to do, asked a very perfect question. He said, "So tell me a couple of things that really stand out about the trip." And I told him this was one of them, just to hear these folks. And I want everybody to stand up when I say your name. Kelly, stand up. Dawn, Kirk, Dash, Lori, Morgan, Peggy, Amy, Emily, Natalie. These guys were just tremendous. Yeah, go ahead. You can sit down now. Yeah, thank you. Going on a trip like this is hard. It's very hard. In fact, on the way back when our flight got delayed, I was thinking, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I was at wit's end. And so Kelly comes up to me. We'll end on a happy note. Kelly comes up to me at the Dallas airport, Dallas-Fort Worth, and I'm just at wit's end. I mean, I'm not, freaking out or anything. I'm losing my capacity to think. And Kelly comes up to me and just as serious as a heart attack says, "Greg, did you see that kid down there with security?" And I said, "What?" He said, "There's a kid down there with security." He says his parents have been beating him. And he's run up to, and I'm really? He said, "Yeah, he's run up to these security people at Dallas, and he's looking for the Dallas Cowboys because he wants them to adopt him." And I went, "I can't believe this. Are you serious?" He said, "Yeah, he wants the Dallas Cowboys to adopt him because the Dallas Cowboys can't beat anybody." And no kidding. And I said to him, just with a complete innocence and lack of guile, I said, "Do they need me to go down there and talk to him? Do they have a pastor or somebody who can talk to this kid?" And my daughter's sitting next to me, and she says, "It's a joke, Dad." And I went, "Oh, I see. It's a hard trip, okay? It's a hard trip to make, I'm telling you." But all 11 of these folks stepped up, and they jumped in, and I never heard any direct complaining. It was always focused at that, entity of the airlines or the travel and all that. No, I'm kidding. They just said, "Okay, this is what's next. We're going to do it." And they did that from the day we left here and drove to Memphis to the day that we got back here from St. Louis, and after a 22-hour day, and we're just grateful. So I thank you guys for that. That's a big deal. I got to know them a little more. We got to share in the gospel in different ways, and we got to really sow some seeds, which is exactly what we do in Alaska. We sow seeds so that God can do whatever He wants. We don't get to dictate that. He does. And I really think that's kind of the way it's supposed to be. He's supposed to dictate that. So thank you guys very much for that. Thank you, church family, for all your prayers, all your support. Several of you gave to the Alaska mission trip, and we were able to bless them in some very specific ways. Our Vacation Bible School gave their offering so that we could give that to the Seldovia Bible Chapel and to Pastor Jonathan for their ministry there. It was a great deal. So thank you, church, for allowing us to go and minister in that way. Thank you for being here tonight to hear a little bit about it and pray as the Lord brings it to mind. Pray for the church in Seldovia. It's the only church there. Pray for Pastor Jonathan and Miss Melanie. They're the glue that holds that place together in a lot of ways, truly. They are constantly in motion because they have to be. So you can pray for them as well. And we'll stop with there. I don't want to linger, but I do want to, if there's any questions, I can talk about that if there are any. If there are not, that's okay too. We did have a small bear attack, but it was small. So I'll let them tell you about that if you come up after the service. There's something there. Let's stand up. Pastors, anything else? I can, you can.
Hey, let's thank the team as well as Pastor Greg for how they cared so well. You know, I'll tell you, Seldovia doesn't show up on a North American Mission Board place where they're sending hordes of people, but I think it's one of the blessings that we get to be a part of, to go to an unreached people, in many ways a forgotten place, and to minister to people who are ministering to people. And that's something you were able to do, and I'm so grateful for that. Kelly, I'll be calling you when I preach through agricultural things. First question will be, are you medicated? Bless their hearts. The Cowboys aren't that bad. It's been a rough 20-plus years, though. The world needs Jesus. And the pressure's not on you. The pressure's all on God. Do this, and do it wherever you go. Let me pray for us, and we'll be dismissed this evening. Gracious God, we thank you for your goodness and your mercy, how you are in the business of moving in places that we don't even know exist, that truly is a planes, trains, and automobiles kind of place, where it's hard to get to, and a lot of people don't want to go through the process of getting there, but God, people there need to hear about Jesus. And Father, I'm grateful that an entire community has been able to experience you. Father, I pray for those 23 or whatever, 26 kiddos that got to hear about your goodness and the love that you have for them. And Father, we don't know where those seeds are going to take them, but Father, I pray that your Spirit will move mightily in their hearts and their lives. Father, I pray that the root will take, and God, they'll be willing then to take the good news of Jesus to the ends of the earth. Father, thank you for calling out people that are willing to give of their resources and their time to go places to share good news, because the good news is worth sharing. And Father, may we continue to be a people, a family of believers that is committed to sharing life change with a dead and dying people. God, thank you for Christ and the cross. Father, we thank you for a grave that is empty and for a Savior who is living and reigning